Nobody warns you that retirement will start feeling impossible before you even turn 30. You'll grow up hearing the same advice over and over. Work hard, save early, invest consistently, let compound interest do the rest. It sounds simple, almost automatic. Like if you just follow the rules, the future will take care of itself. But then real life begins, and you realize the math doesn't match the motivation. You land your first real job and finally feel like things are moving forward. A salary, benefits, maybe even a 401k option. It feels like progress, but within weeks, reality settles in. Rent eats a huge portion of your paycheck, not a small slice. Not manageable, huge. In most cities, housing alone can swallow 40 to 50% of your income, and that's before utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance, and student loans even show up. You open your banking app and stare at the numbers. You're earning more than you ever have, but somehow it still feels tight. You tell yourself it's temporary, entry-level pay, early career stage. It'll grow, but so does everything else. Rent increases, insurance premiums rise, grocery bills creep up, gas fluctuates. Even basic services cost more every year. Your salary inches forward, but expenses sprint ahead. And then someone casually says, "Are you maxing out your retirement contributions?" It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. But inside, it feels unrealistic. Maxing out would mean setting aside tens of thousands of dollars a year. That's money you don't even see in your account. Money that feels imaginary compared to the rent due next week. You start with something small, maybe 3%, maybe 5%. It feels responsible, but also slightly stressful, because that deduction is money you could use right now. This is where the pressure begins. Saving for retirement requires thinking decades ahead. But young professionals are stuck solving today's problems. Emergency funds are thin. Credit card balances quietly grow during expensive months. Student loan payments resume. Healthcare deductibles surprise you. Retirement feels like a luxury goal when financial stability in the present isn't fully secure. There's also the emotional layer no one talks about. Retirement planning assumes long-term stability, stable income, stable employment, stable housing, but many young professionals don't feel stable. Job hopping isn't a strategy for excitement, it's often survival. Layoffs are common. Contracts end. Companies restructure. Entire industries shift overnight. It's hard to confidently invest for 40 years when you're unsure about the next 12 months. Let's talk about debt. Student loans alone can feel like a second rent payment. You graduate already behind, already obligated, already allocating future income to past decisions. Even responsible borrowing leaves a mark. Monthly payments reduce the margin available for investing, and psychologically, carrying debt makes saving feel contradictory. You're paying interest in one direction while trying to earn it in another. Then there's lifestyle inflation, not the flashy kind, the quiet kind. You finally afford a safer neighborhood, a reliable car, healthier food, maybe therapy, maybe travel once a year. None of these are extravagant. They're normal adult upgrades, but they cost money. And when you're building a life from scratch, almost every improvement competes directly with long-term savings. The system also changed compared to previous generations. Pensions are rare. Social security feels uncertain. Employer loyalty doesn't guarantee lifetime benefits. The responsibility has shifted almost entirely onto individuals. You're expected to manage investments, understand tax-advantaged accounts, predict market growth, and calculate future needs, all while managing rising living costs. It's not just saving, it's financial strategy at a professional level. And here's the quiet truth. Many young professionals aren't irresponsible. They're overwhelmed. There's a difference. They understand the importance of saving. They read about compound interest. They see the projections showing how early investing matters. But understanding something intellectually doesn't make the numbers easier emotionally. Because retirement saving requires surplus, and surplus feels rare. You start running mental calculations constantly. If I contribute more, I have less flexibility now. If I contribute less, future me suffers. It becomes a tug-of-war between present security and future security. And when present life already feels fragile, the future becomes negotiable. There's also a fear baked into the equation. Markets fluctuate. Recessions happen. You might invest consistently for years and still watch your account drop during downturns. It's hard to stay confident when volatility feels personal. especially when every dollar invested required sacrifice. And quietly, something shifts. Retirement stops feeling like a milestone and starts feeling like a question mark. Not because you don't want it, but because you can't clearly see how to reach it without sacrificing stability today. This isn't laziness, it's math colliding with reality. And this is only the first layer of why saving for retirement feels almost impossible right now. As the years move forward, something else becomes clear. It's not just that saving is hard, it's that the timeline feels compressed. Previous generations often bought homes in their 20s or early 30s. Mortgages were manageable compared to income. Housing acted like forced savings. Equity grew quietly in the background. For many young professionals today, that path feels blocked. Home prices have outpaced wages in most major cities. Even in smaller cities, the gap is wider than it used to be. Saving for retirement competes directly with saving for a down payment. You're told both are essential, both are urgent. But your income doesn't stretch far enough to aggressively fund both at the same time. So you split your effort, and splitting effort slows progress in both directions. Rent, meanwhile, doesn't build equity, it builds someone else's wealth. And when rent increases year after year, it erodes the margin you hoped to invest. Every lease renewal feels like a setback. You adjust your budget again. You postpone increasing contributions again. Retirement becomes something you'll focus on next year. Inflation quietly magnifies the problem. Groceries cost more. Utilities rise. Insurance premiums adjust upward. Even small recurring expenses stack up over time. The purchasing power of your paycheck shrinks in ways that aren't too dramatic enough to make headlines every month, but consistent enough to change your long-term math. You might earn more than your parents did at your age, but your money doesn't stretch the same way. Then there's healthcare. Employer-sponsored insurance helps, but deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums can still be high. A single medical issue can wipe out months of careful saving. And because many young professionals don't feel fully secure in their employment, building a strong emergency fund often takes priority over retirement investing. Liquidity feels safer than long-term accounts you can't touch without penalties. Career paths also look different now. Stability isn't guaranteed. Promotions don't always come with major salary jumps. Some industries reward specialization, others reward constant movement. Gig work and contract roles are common. Those positions often lack retirement benefits entirely. No employer match, no automatic enrollment. You have to create your own system from scratch. And the employer match, when it exists, is helpful but limited. It sounds generous on paper. We'll match up to 4%. But 4% isn't enough to fund a full retirement. It's a boost, not a solution. And if you leave the company early or face layoffs, vesting schedules can reduce what you actually keep. Even benefits come with conditions. Another layer rarely discussed is burnout. Many young professionals are working hard, often beyond traditional hours. The cost of living pressures them to stay productive. But burnout reduces earning potential over time. It leads to job changes, career breaks, or reduced performance. When you're exhausted, long-term planning feels secondary. Survival and recovery take priority. There's also the psychological gap between effort and visible progress. Retirement accounts grow slowly at first. Early contributions don't look impressive. Watching a few $1,000s sit in an account while knowing you've sacrificed for it can feel underwhelming, especially when market swings erase months of gains in a week. Patience is required, but patience is hard when financial pressure is constant. Social comparisons amplify the stress. You see peers posting about investments, crypto wins, real estate flips, side businesses. It creates the illusion that everyone else is building wealth faster. But social media rarely shows debt, stress, or the trade-offs behind those numbers. Comparison adds emotional pressure without improving financial reality. Meanwhile, life milestones keep getting delayed. Marriage happens later, children happen later, home ownership happens later. These shifts aren't purely cultural, they're economic. Financial insecurity makes long-term commitments feel risky, and ironically, delaying milestones can also delay financial advantages that come from shared income and shared expenses. Young professionals often feel stuck in a middle space, earning too much to qualify for assistance, but not enough to feel comfortable. Responsible enough to know retirement matters, but stretched too thin to maximize contributions. It creates quiet guilt. You know what you should be doing, but the numbers resist. Even financial advice sometimes feels disconnected from reality. Just cut unnecessary spending. Brew coffee at home. Stop eating out. These tips help at the margins, but they don't solve structural cost gaps. Cutting small luxuries doesn't offset housing, inflation, or healthcare spikes. The problem isn't always spending discipline, it's scale. And so retirement planning becomes a balancing act built on uncertainty. You'll contribute what you can. You'll hope salary growth accelerates. You'll hope markets cooperate. You'll hope policy changes strengthen safety nets. But hope is not a strategy, it's a placeholder. This is where the tension deepens, because the desire to secure your future is real, but the ability to do so consistently feels unstable. And this isn't even the deepest layer yet. As time passes, another uncomfortable truth begins to surface. It's not just about how much you can save, it's about how long you'll have to save for. Life expectancy has increased. Healthcare costs in later years are unpredictable. Retirement isn't just a short finish line anymore. It could last 20 or 30 years. And that reality quietly raises the target number higher than most people are prepared for. You start seeing articles that say you'll need $1 million, then $2 million, then more, depending on where you live. The number feels distant, unreal, almost abstract, but it's based on real math. Inflation over decades, rising medical expenses, housing, food, insurance, long-term care. When you break it down, retirement isn't cheap. It's a second lifetime that requires funding. And this is where anxiety creeps in. Because if saving feels difficult now, how will it feel 10 years from now? Will wages grow fast enough? Will investments perform consistently? Will Social Security still exist in its current form? No one can give a guaranteed answer, and building a 40-year financial plan on uncertain foundations is mentally exhausting. There's also the risk factor. Retirement investing depends heavily on the market. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds, they all fluctuate. Historically, markets grow over time, but growth is never smooth. Recessions hit, bubbles burst. Global events shake economies overnight. Young professionals are told to ride it out, but riding out volatility requires emotional strength. Watching your account drop 20% after years of steady contributions feels personal, even if it's temporary. The burden of responsibility is heavier than previous generations carried. Pensions once provided defined benefits. Employers carried the risk. Now individuals carry it. If your investments underperform, that's on you. If you didn't contribute enough, that's on you. If you retire during a downturn, timing becomes your problem. The safety nets are thinner, and the accountability feels total. Even high-income young professionals are not immune. A six-figure salary sounds comfortable, but in high-cost cities, it can disappear quickly. Rent or mortgage payments alone can exceed $3,000 a month. Childcare can rival rent. Student loan debt doesn't disappear just because income rises. Taxes increase as earnings increase. The illusion of wealth masks tight cash flow, and lifestyle expectations scale with income. Professional clothing, networking events, relocation costs, continuing education, certifications, travel for work. Maintaining a successful image carries expenses that aren't always optional. Income growth doesn't always translate to free cash flow growth. There's also the reality of career volatility. Industries evolve quickly. Automation replaces roles. Technology shifts, skill demands. Staying competitive requires continuous learning, which costs time and sometimes money. Career breaks happen for caregiving, burnout recovery, or layoffs. Every gap in income affects retirement momentum. Compounding works best with consistency. But modern careers are rarely consistent. Contributions start and stop. Accounts get rolled over. Investment strategies change. The ideal scenario of steady contributions for 40 uninterrupted years rarely matches real life. And then there's the psychological weight of delayed gratification. Retirement saving asks you to sacrifice today for comfort decades away. That trade-off is logical. But emotionally, it's challenging when present life already feels financially constrained. Skipping experiences in your 20s and 30s for a retirement you might not fully trust is a difficult bargain. Some young professionals quietly wonder, will retirement even look the same in the future? Will working into your 70s become normal? Will part-time work in later years be necessary? The traditional image of stopping work completely at 65 feels less certain than it once did. So you adjust expectations. Maybe retirement won't mean full freedom. Maybe it will mean reduced hours, consulting, flexible income. The dream shifts from complete financial independence to partial stability. And while that shift may be realistic, it's also revealing. It shows how much confidence in long-term security has changed. Yet despite all this uncertainty, most young professionals still try. They contribute something. They research, they learn, they open accounts, they automate small deposits. Because even if the path feels steep, doing nothing feels worse. But the quiet emotional cost remains. The constant awareness that you are responsible for funding decades of future life in an economy that feels unpredictable is heavy. It sits in the background of daily decisions, career moves, spending choices, risk tolerance. And this is where the story turns towards something deeper than numbers. At some point, the conversation about retirement stops being about spreadsheets and starts becoming about trust. Trust in the economy, trust in employers, trust in markets, trust in institutions. And for many young professionals, that trust feels fragile. You've watched recessions happen in real time. You've seen layoffs hit entire departments without warning. You've seen companies post record profits and still cut jobs. It becomes harder to believe that long-term loyalty will be rewarded with long-term stability. And that uncertainty shapes behavior. Instead of confidently planning decades ahead, you hedge. You stay flexible. You keep one eye on opportunities and another on potential risks. You build emergency funds before maxing retirement. You prioritize liquidity over lock-in because deep down, adaptability feels safer than commitment. There's also a generational weight that rarely gets acknowledged. Many young professionals watched their parents struggle through financial crises. Some saw retirement accounts shrink overnight. Some saw homes foreclosed. Some saw plans delayed by years. That memory lingers. Even if the data says markets recover over time, lived experience leaves a mark. It makes you cautious. It makes you skeptical of guarantees. And then there's the emotional fatigue of constant responsibility. You're told to optimize everything. Optimize your career. Optimize your spending. Optimize your side income. Optimize your investments. There's always a better strategy, a smarter tax move, a higher yield option. The pressure to make perfect financial decisions for 40 years is exhausting. Financial planning becomes another performance metric. If you're not investing enough, you feel behind. If you're investing aggressively, you worry about risk. If you choose safety, you worry about growth. There's no setting that feels fully comfortable. It's a constant calibration. At the same time, life is happening now. Friendships, travel, relationships, personal growth, experiences that won't come back. And every dollar put toward retirement is a dollar not used in the present. That trade-off isn't wrong, but it's real. The balance is delicate. Lean too far toward the future, and you miss your youth. Lean too far toward the present, and you risk insecurity later. Young professionals are not ignoring retirement. They're navigating complexity that previous generations didn't face at the same scale. Higher education costs, higher housing costs, less guaranteed retirement benefits, more volatile job markets, longer life expectancy. It's not about discipline, it's about structural shifts. Yet despite everything, there's a quiet resilience in this generation. People are learning financial literacy earlier. They're opening Roth IRAs. They're researching index funds. They're questioning fees. They're having conversations about money that used to be taboo. They may feel behind, but they're not uninformed. And maybe that's where hope exists, not in pretending the challenge isn't real, but in acknowledging it honestly. Retirement may feel almost impossible, but almost still leaves room for strategy. Small, consistent contributions still compound. Employer matchers still add value. Skill growth still increases earning potential over time. The path may be steeper, but it's not invisible. The real shift might be redefining what retirement means. Maybe it's not about complete withdrawal from work. Maybe it's about flexibility, about choice, about reducing pressure rather than eliminating activity. Financial independence might look different in the future, but it doesn't have to disappear. The key is sustainability, building habits that don't collapse under pressure, saving enough to grow, but not so much that you suffocate your present. Accepting that progress may be slower, but steady still matters. Comparison doesn't build wealth. Consistency does. If any part of this feels familiar, you're not alone. Feeling behind doesn't mean you failed. It means you're navigating a system that changed faster than the advice did, and that's why conversations like this matter. If you're a young professional trying to balance rent, debt, and retirement all at once, drop a comment and share what's been hardest for you. Is it housing, student loans, job instability? Talking about it doesn't fix the economy, but it reminds others they're not the only ones doing this math every month. And if this perspective helped you put words to something you've been feeling quietly, share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful thing isn't a perfect investment strategy. It's realizing the struggle isn't personal failure, it's shared reality. Thanks for staying all the way through. The future may feel uncertain, but awareness is still power. And honest conversations are where better strategies begin.